Hi, this is A. Wesley. That ain't just like a TIL. If you like my video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Topic I'm going to talk to you today about is Heart and Hustle Houston, episode six. Uh, episode six started out with Alaina going to the inner pole club, and she had invited all the girls to come to the club there because Alaina said in her confession on the shit, she always wanted to do pole dancing. She had never did pole dancing before, and that was something she was interested in doing, and she wanted to do it. So she invited the ladies, and so LeToria showed up first, and then the rest of the girls came in behind her, and then LeToria said, "What was what was Alaina thinking? What was Alaina thinking? I don't know nothing about no pole dancing. I don't like no pole dancing. I don't want to do no pole dancing and stuff." And Chloe said, "Yeah, pole dancing." And then Rose said, "Ooh, it might be fun. It might be fun." So the instructor showed them how to do the pole dancing, and LeToria and LeBria said, "Ooh, look at Elena, look at Elena and Rose. You can tell Roy had been doing this before. Roy had been doing it. It looked like the pole was wearing Rose." And I was saying, yeah, Rose sure was the best dancer, and Elena was second. And they were saying, yeah, Elena said she didn't know how to do this, but looked like Elena did it. Looked like Elena did, but find some way to learn how to do it. And I was saying, yeah, Elena sure did know how to do that. And then after that, they sat down to talk, and they said, "What's going on? How was everything going on with everybody? How everything's going on?" And then, uh, and then Latoya said, "Well, I got a date tonight." She said, "Date tonight?" She said, "Yeah." LeBria set me up with her friend. And LeBria chimed in and said, "Yeah, he's a country guy and he like horses." And then to Latara said, "Yeah, that's what LeBria told me." And so Chloe said, "They'll probably rap your alley, probably rap your alley." She said, "Yeah, I'm going there. I'm gonna see how it goes. I'm gonna see how it goes." And then switch to the next scene. And the next scene was Alaina, and she said she was just so happy to have her own space, her own studio. She ain't got to share no business with Josh no more and stuff like that. And she said LeToria Luckett had been one of her clients, had been one of her celebrity clients ever since she opened up her makeup and hair studio in Houston. And so LeToria came in, and LeToria was sitting in the chair, and she said, "Alaina, how you doing? How's everything going on with you?" Alaina said, "It's not going that good with me." She said, "What do you mean it's not going that good with me?" She said, "It's not going that good for me in my marriage." She said, "What's going on in your marriage?" She said, "Well, me and Josh are having some problems. You understand? Josh having some problems." "Oh, y'all having some problems?" She said, "What is the problem?" She said, excuse me. Alaina said, me and Josh are sleeping in separate rooms. The Taurus said, "Huh? What? Slept separate rooms? Y'all still doing that?" And she said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, that's not good. That's not good. Do y'all do you really want a relationship? Work on your relationship?" She said, "I know how it is when you try to work on a relationship and you the only person working on a relationship and the other person not." And Elaine said, "Yeah, that's the way I feel. That's the way I feel." And she said, "Why you feel that way?" She said, "Because," but Latoya said, "What you gonna do to work on your marriage?" She said, "Well, I'm trying to work on it now." She said, I talked to my husband. I said, "I think we should go to couples therapy." She said, "But now Josh want to do individual therapy." And Latoya said, "Why you want to do individual therapy? That's not gonna help y'all work on y'all marriage. Not unless you don't want to marry." She said, "Well, I think you do want to marry." She said, "But he said he want to try individual stuff first." She said, "No. See if you can convince him to go to the couples therapy, because that'd be the best thing for y'all. Because you can have your issues with the therapist, and he can have his issue with the therapist." She said, I'm gonna try." And then switch to the next scene, and the next scene was LeBria FaceTiming Noreen, and she said, "Noreen, what do you think about what happened at the event? What happened at the event? She said, I didn't like what happened at the, I didn't like what happened at the dinner. I didn't like what happened at the event. She said, she said, especially the way, especially the way they were treating, especially the way they were treating LeToria. That girl kept saying she know LeToria, and it was just a Facebook thing. And so, LeBria said, I didn't like that either. I didn't like that either, Noreen. I didn't like that either. I was like ganging up on LeToria, and she had to leave the dinner because of that stuff. And she said, yeah. And then she said, yeah. Now, I don't know why they invite that other girl. And then LeBria said, well, next time we have an event, I'm going to tell Chloe, don't invite nobody that's not in the friend group. And Noreen said, yeah. And they FaceTime out. I agree with them wholeheartedly. Because the way that girl came in so heavy and hard and stuff like that, it's like she was trying to get her a seat on a seat on the show or whatever, but she was really just trying too hard for me. And so I can't think of her name. I think her name is Laquita, LaShawn, or something, but I really can't think of her name. Anyway, let's switch to the next scene. And the next scene was Ro going to visit Ro was going to visit Chloe, and she rang the doorbell, and Chloe said, come on in, sit down, where we gonna sit down? She said, nah, where you want me to sit down? She said, girl, treat this like your home. She said, no, I ain't gonna do that. She said, I'll never do nobody else's house like that when I come to visit. I don't treat their house as my house. She said, well, let's go up here. Let's go up here to the family room. So he went upstairs to the family room. And she said, what do you think about the dinner party? That was Chloe. What do you think about the dinner party? Bro, what happened? Bro said, I don't want to talk about that. We already talked about that. I don't want to talk about that. And and uh Chloe said, well, since you don't talk about it, what's going on with you? Seems like something going on with you, the way you acting. She said, something is going on with me. She said, what is it? She said, well, I missed my stuff for a week. She said, for a week. She said, yeah, I think I might be pregnant. Chloe said, well, if you is pregnant, we're gonna give you a big baby shower. She said, but I don't want to be pregnant. Not at this stage in my life. And so she said, at this stage in your life, she said, yeah. I don't think he want to be a dad either. She said, who is it? Do somebody I know? She said, no, he played basketball. He playing the NBA. You know, we've been dating off and on, off and on. And did you know that? Chloe said, no, I didn't know you had no boyfriend. I didn't know you were dating until you told me now. And I was thinking the same thing. She ain't never mentioned on the show like I was retro ladies that she was dating somebody or whatever. So Rose kept that way secret. And so, Chloe said to, again, Wesley. Let me stop it right quick. I'm back. I had to answer the phone. And so she said, how you know you pregnant, Ro? Did you go to the doctor take a test? And Rose said, no, that's why I brought this. And she showed her home pregnant test. She said, go into my bathroom and go into my bathroom and take it. She said, I'm scared. She said, don't be scared to do. Are you just scared to, or are you scared of results? She said, I'm for both. And so he said, go on in there, go on in. So she went on there and she said, what did it say? What did it say? He said, you come over here and read it too. And she went over there and looked like Chloe was looking. And she said, and then Chloe said, you're not pregnant. She said, oh, I'm so glad, I'm so glad. I thought you put I thought you put I'm so glad. She said, right at this stage in my life, I ain't ready to have no kids. And I don't think he ready to have no kids either. Oh, I'm just so happy that Sarah leaving me and switch to the next scene. And the next scene was LeToria getting ready for that date. And she tried to pick out something to wear. She was shot, but she wear. And the next thing you know, they showed on the date. And she was sitting at the bar. And she had a little drink and she was waiting. And she looked around, she said, ooh, where is he? He gonna be late. And so he showed up and she said, oh, how you doing? And he was an old man, looked like he was about my age in his his late 50s, early 60s. And she said, how you doing? Yeah, how you doing? My name, I think he said his name was Brandon. He said, my name is LeToria. She said, what do you do for a living? He said, well, I used to work at this place, but now I'm a farmer, and I I have my cows and my horses and stuff. I do all that. Shit. Oh yeah, LeBria told me that you like horses. He said, yeah, I like horses. What about you? She said, I ain't too fond of horses. That's okay. You ain't fond of horses. That's a red flag right there. It's a strike right there. He said, huh? Strike right there. And he said, what do you do? She said, well, I'm an event planner. I do this and I do that. She said, oh, okay. And then he said, do you think I could change your mind about horses? She said, I didn't say I didn't like horses. She said, I'm not very fond of them. And so, and he said, well, like I said, if we're gonna get together, you're gonna have to learn how to you're gonna learn how to accept that I got a ranch and I do horses and stuff. And I like horses. I really do like horses. She said, yeah, from the way you talking, you really want that's what you really interested in horses. But like I said, you can have your horse stuff. You said, well, like I said, if a person don't like horses, I really don't want to have too much to do with them or deal with them. And she said, whatever else you can do. Well, I got some children and I had an ex-wife. I said, children and an ex-wife. I said, those are red flags to me, LeToria. One, all that man did was talk about himself and them horses, and he loved them horses. And after a while, LeToria said, well, this right here with us, it's not going to work because, I have my own career and I have my businesses and you love the horses and you saying if a person don't love horses with you, that's kind of a red flag for you. She said, it was nice talking to you, night. And I knew that day was going to be ridiculous from Jump Street and stuff like that because that man, all he talked about was himself, me. And then when LeToria tried to get any kind of information out of him, he always started horses. I think he was doing that so he wouldn't have to interact with LeToria because he probably looked at LeToria was a heavyset woman and he was a heavyset woman. And I think by him being married and have grown kids, I think he just wants somebody to help him take care of them horses and all that kind of stuff. That would seem to me. But anyway, let's switch to the next scene. And the next scene was the last scene with Elena talking to Josh, and she told Josh that she feel like he ain't doing enough. He said, "Well, I am doing enough. I'm going into therapy." She said, "But Josh, you only been there one time." He said, "But I've been real busy." She said, "I've been busy too, but I've been going to therapy." She said, "Josh, you sure you don't want us to go to couples therapy? That would be best." He said, "Nah, right now we just need to stick to where we are, stick to where we are." She said, "Josh, if you don't start putting in a little bit more work than what you're doing and stuff like that, and I feel like I'm putting in all the work, then something gonna have to change, and something gonna have to change." He said, "Well, I'll try to go to a few more of the counseling sessions and stuff." And I'm looking at Josh, and you really don't want to go to no conversation. You just doing it to pacify Elena. So Elena won't leave. But Elena look like she's ready to leave and stuff like that. But she is trying to make sure that she gave her marriage a chance because she took some advice from Victoria. But anyway, sometimes they'll work, sometimes it don't work. But anyway, that's all I have for the video. This is A. Wesley. That ain't even testing. That ain't even testing like a TI is. I am out. I'll do episode 7 and 8 in my next video of Hustle and Housewives Houston. Now this is all I have for this video.